Okay, good morning, everyone, to week one of the book study called Switch on Your Brain. I am Heidi Neufeld, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm very excited about this book study. We are going to be walking through this together. We are going to spend probably about 6 to 7 weeks on it, and the reason I'm so looking forward to it is because it heavily deals with our mindset. And our mindset, research is showing, it's been years and years in coming. Science and medical are all coming together and telling us what we already know, that our mindset really does control everything. It controls our life, it controls mind, moods, and emotions, it also controls physical body, and it does control outcomes in what we experience in life. That can be in the workplace, in family life, in basically every area of life. So everybody here, if you have your book, show it to me. You might not all have it yet, and that's okay. Awesome, good. This is going to be a keeper on your bookshelf forever and ever and ever. Mine is heavily marked up already, and it's going to be something you're going to refer to. You're going to want to share this with others as you go through life. You're going to want to come back and re-listen to this again. So I'm going to admit, when I opened up this book, it's been recommended to me by many that have gone before me. And sometimes when you yourself come to a place in life where you think, I'm doing all these things right, I've got all the bases covered, but there's still something, and usually that common denominator is ourselves, right? None of us are immune from that. When we hit a roadblock anywhere, it's time for some personal growth and some reflecting and looking into, right? What can I change? What can I do? A little background, you guys, a lot of you know my story. I'm not going to retell the whole thing, but I have had quite the interesting upbringing and gone through a lot of different experiences and quite a lot of various types of trauma, from emotional to physical. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people say to me, they say, Heidi, like, doesn't that bother you? Doesn't that affect you? A lot of people still to this day at 37 years old say, like, do you go to counseling and all these things? And I always say no, no, and no. My answer to that is always the things that I have been through. Are there some bad memories? Yes. Are there some things that I wish I didn't have to have a visual memory of and think about? Yes. Does it affect some of my day-to-day? Yeah, it totally does. Just like even if you had really great things happen, it affects your today. But had I not been through all of those things, this would not, I wouldn't be who I am today, right? I think you guys could all say you would not be who you are today had it not been for some of the things you've experienced, for good or for bad. And so this book was recommended as a little piece to that puzzle. Can you sit back and just be a victim? I posted a quote today, right? You can't control the things that happen to you in life. I had no control starting at 3 years old of what was about to all go on, but can I control how I react to it? Yes. You can have two people in two very similar situations. The exact same thing can happen, and they can turn that around into two very different outcomes. One for just really negative. They can take that upon themselves and say, well, you know, this is who I am, and I can never do this or that because of what happened to me. And then you can have the next person who says, okay, bring it on. Just made me stronger. It made me have empathy. I, going through postpartum depression and anxiety, did it totally suck? Yes. Was I crying on the carpet? Literally? Yes. Walking alone down gravel roads, scared that I might actually jump off a bridge, those tiny little canal bridges, which seems a ludicrous thought, but yes. Okay. But could I empathize before I went through that with anyone else that had anxiety? No. So I think we're given experiences in life. So we're going to learn, what does it look like when we go through these? What's going on in our mind? This is a little bit more sciencey than I thought, because I jumped on someone I trusted. I jumped on their recommendation to get through this. So Joelle's nodding like, yeah, it's pretty sciencey. So we're going to go through this carefully. We're not going to pick it totally apart. If you like taking notes, take some. If you like just kind of absorbing, and maybe you'll come back to this later, right? I want you to take what you want from this. What's going to make this the most impactful for all of us and anyone watching later on is your interaction too. right? Hearing feedback, stepping outside that comfort zone a little bit and being willing to share, like, hey, this is what I thought of that. Or, hey, this is, this maybe one sentence has been really impactful for me or someone that I know. The more you can do that, the more that we're all going to gain, and what you say matters. So I never want you to feel like, oh, I'm kind of thinking this, but that might sound dumb. Or maybe they've already heard that before. Right? So I want you to right now keep yourselves muted until, it's time to talk, and use the raise your hand. I will try to keep watch on it. But take a peek right now on where that mute and unmute is so that you can contribute and you can say, or if there's something in here. We're going to try to go through a couple chapters a week. So it's probably going to take us, I think I counted out 6 to 7 weeks. So we're really going to camp here for summer probably. Summer is a good time. It is not a time to just stop your business or whatever you're doing in life, right? That's the wrong mentality. You don't want to just like, oh, I'm going to take the summer off. No, you're going to pay for that in the fall if you do that. But it is a time where it's a great time to pick up some books and do some self-development when you're sitting at the lake, at the beach, at the park, on your back, right, your back porch, to be able to just dig a little bit deeper and have a little bit of quiet time in the warm sunshine or shade. So we're going to get going here. Any comments before we get started? I'm actually not asking, are there any? I would like to hear a couple comments just on a 1 or 2 sentence quick overall on what you thought already, not specific about the book, but maybe how you're feeling as you opened it up and kind of got into it. Anybody want to share? Yeah, Joelle, go ahead. Just unmute. Yeah, unmute when you're ready. I think she's frozen. Anybody else as Joelle is coming to us? Joelle, I think you're good. Go ahead. Let's try once more.
Oh, sorry. It looked like it froze. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying was the book was definitely science-y. Reading between the lines, so to speak, taking what you can from it. Lots of great information. And yeah, it's definitely making me see things differently and how I can change my life to be more positive and the life I want it to be.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes, Tamara.
Hi, Heidi. I just wanted to throw this out there to everyone else. I'm just catching up here and finding out where we're at and that sort of thing as a group. But I found the Switch on Your Brain book just through my library's app. So I didn't have to buy it through Amazon. I didn't have to wait for it to be shipped to me. I actually just downloaded it just now. So I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone else who's trying to catch up like me. So
that is awesome. Well, you're not catching up because we are just getting started. So this is absolutely perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, because that's great. For me, I like highlighting and marking, and other people do really great just reading it on their Kindle and absorbing it or whatever. So thank you. That's awesome. Really great. So you guys can tell people that are just kind of joining in late. Yeah, great. Okay, so we're going to get going into here. So just a really quick overview. We're going to do it like the last book study where we're going to kind of just bounce across. If there's something where you're like, that was so profound to me, please go ahead, raise your physical hand, because I'm often not looking down at the bottom and I miss that little tiny hand icon. And if you guys are chatting amongst yourselves, it's hard for me to try to decipher what's what, and I don't have it open. I'm heavily distracted with stuff like that. So just go ahead and raise your physical hand. Please feel free at any time to do that. So in the beginning, I'm going to kind of again go through the highlights of the things that kind of stood out to me. So I really liked the prologue. I don't think I've ever actually read a prologue in a book before, honestly. But for some reason, I started reading this. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this cover to cover. So some parts I have highlighted to get us into what is this book actually about. She says, what would you do if you found a switch that could turn on your brain and enable you to have a happier, healthier mind and body, to be more prosperous and intelligent If anybody said like, no, or I don't want that, you're crazy, I was like, hello, yes, right? Who wouldn't want that? She says, in this book, you're going to learn how to find and activate that switch. And at that point, I was like, I'm in. I am in. I am all the way. We're going to figure this out. She says, you have an extraordinary ability to determine, achieve, maintain optimal levels of intelligence. That one actually shocked me. Mental health, peace, happiness, as well as prevention of disease. Prevention of disease, especially in the industry that we are in, stood out to me. This is something that you've heard me talk about a lot in some of the health groups, and we know that, right? That your mind is heavily connected to the physical body. It's why they talk so much about stress. So she's totally on par. She says it's your attitude and not your DNA that actually determines much of your quality of life. Did anybody already know that? Yeah. I have a coffee cup by Charles Swindoll that says life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I can be a living testimony that that is totally true. Yep. Like I was saying, you can have two people that have gone through the same life situation. One of them is totally thriving and just took the bull by the horns and ran and made something good out of it, helped change lives, and the other person kind of crawled into a hole. Right? So we get to choose. So I loved that. She says, or not she even, at the bottom of this prologue, and if you're following along in the book, page 15, very bottom, there's a quote. It says by a peace pilgrim. I don't even know if that's a person or if that's just like a somebody. But I love this. We all need to literally have this up on our walls or somewhere you can see it, maybe as your background. It says, if you realized how powerful your thoughts are, you would never, ever think a negative thought again. That was profound. I was like, whoa, I told my husband, get in here. You have to hear this. It's really true, though. We don't understand the power of the mind, the power of the brain, and how it affects our physical bodies. So skipping forward, she, of course, said thank you to everyone that's helped her get this far. She is a scientist, which is really neat. She's actually a Christian scientist. So she sees this from both ways. This is not just another quack, I'm going to say, right? This is really based on both sides of the equation here. This is not biased in any way. And so she gets into the introduction. And I like at the beginning, she tells you every chapter it's going to say kind of a biblical scripture that she hangs on to, but she links it all through science concept, which is really neat. So she says, only a few decades ago, this is now an introduction, page 19, scientists believed that brain damage was hopeless and untreatable. I think there's still a lot of that. I'm watching someone on Instagram. Her husband had a horrific accident. Went from being like in the military and thriving to literally what they would call kind of brain dead. The changes, his wife has stood by him, the changes in him, he is blowing doctors out of the water. You should see their Instagram following. And he would be proof of this. It says all of these causes. So we're talking now brain affected causes. So things like stroke, cardiovascular things, traumatic brain injuries, learning disabilities, post-traumatic stress, OCD, anxiety, depression, even aging, anything that changes the brain. She says all these causes and conditions were seen as largely irreversible. And it wasn't even that long ago. But things are really changing. And she says even from her research, results are confirming that the brain, hang on one second. She says results confirm that the brain, far from being fixed in toxicity, can change, even in the most challenging neurological situations. Isn't that neat? Isn't that neat to know that maybe if you don't like, let's talk about ourselves, maybe you don't like who you are today. We all sometimes hide behind a smile during the day. It's okay. We all have our quiet thoughts, and maybe there's things I don't like about myself, but how freeing to know that I can change that. I have the ability to change that if I choose to do that. I'm not stuck being a reckless mess, like a hot mess like I am some days, right? But I have to choose. She says, we are not victims of our biology or our circumstances. How we react to the events and circumstances of life can have an enormous impact on our mental and our physical health. And I just keep going back to that physical, because we know that certain mindset choices, of course, if you're a negative person and you always lean to the negative, you're probably not going to be the most bubbly kind of Maya type person. Maya is so bubbly and happy all the time. What a breath of fresh air. If you guys haven't met her, you need to in person. And so what a breath of fresh air, though, to know that. And so she says, as we think, we change the physical nature of our brain, literally. It all starts in the realm of our mind with our ability to think and choose. So there's some graphics on page 21, if you have the book, kind of shows some of that. They do a lot of brain imaging, right? This is where we get into the science of this whole thing. But it's just phenomenal what the minds do. She says on page 22, it's with our minds that we reject or believe lies. So lies are the enemy, right? Lies, we can be our own worst enemy. We believe these things. So just because a thought comes into your mind, I talk to people with anxiety a lot. They say, what do I do with these thoughts? And I say, you know what? That thought is actually just a thought. It's not you, but you got to decide, is that thought, is that me? Do I believe it? What do you do with it? So you can either choose to camp out on it, and you can let it roll around and dwell. But you know how I walked out of anxiety? I mean, there were many things, but this one was huge. I read a book about this, and it specifically said when that thought comes in, you either choose to grab it, bring it in, and just churn it over and over. It's like chewing gum, over and over and over, and it gets ingrained in there. Or you make a choice fast to say, that ain't truth. That's not me. That's not true. And you take it and you throw it back to the curb. Is that easy? No. I'm not going to pretend that that is. Does it take a lot of practice? Yeah, it does. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy thought. It can even be like, I don't love how my jeans fit today, right? What are you going to do? You're going to camp out all day and say like, I don't look good and everything feels gross? Or can you say, you know what? I might not be where I want to be, but I'm healthy and I'm walking around. And I'm going to make today good. And if my jeans are a bit tight, then I should probably get out for a walk or something. Do you see the two differences? You got to choose where you camp out. She's going to talk a lot about neuroplasty in this. That's a big word. But neuroplasty, by definition, I'm reading right out of the book, means the brain is malleable and adaptable, changing moment by moment. That I didn't know. Scientists are finally beginning to see the brain as having renewable characteristics. It's no longer viewed as just a machine that's hardwired early in life and unable to adapt and wearing out with age. That's kind of how media portrays it, right? You're born, situations kind of change your brain, and then as we go through life, we age and it deteriorates and it shrivels up, and kind of too bad for us. Do you know what I say to that? Age is only a number. Age is only a number. It's what you make it. Are there sometimes things? Yeah, there are. But what are you going to do with that? I had a man in the nursing home. I will remember him forever. He had some dementia. It happened. What's the cause of that? I don't know. But there were people at his same age with dementia, and they sat in their chairs. And they were so down and depressed. Do you know what he did? We'd push him in this huge jerry chair to every meal. And every single time he would put out his hand, and he was so cute, and he would pretend, he would make all the sound effects like he was stick shifting a huge semi-truck. And he was never a truck driver, but he was just making the best of what he has. He couldn't get up on his two legs and walk, so we would laugh all the way, and we'd argue over who got to go get Mr. Dirksen, because I wish his family knew the impact he had on us. And he was like, with his jerry chair, right? He made the best out of it. They were both in the same situation. The fact that the brain is plastic and can actually be changed by the mind, it gives tangible hope to every single person, no matter what your circumstances. I think that's really, really, really cool. Page 24, still in that introduction, science and scripture showing how the results of our decisions pass through, oh my word, get this. This is like sensitive issues class right here. Pass through the sperm and the ova for the next 4 generations. That's crazy. I don't understand the science, but there is science. That's really wild. Think of your kids and your grandkids, right? She says, every morning when you wake up, new baby nerve cells have been born while you were sleeping that are at your disposal to be used in tearing down toxic thoughts and rebuilding happy thoughts. We've always been told to get good sleep at night. Do you know that after reading this, I wanted to stay up and get some work done last night? It was 11 o'clock, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, I need that sleep. There's new baby nerve cells, right? I always knew it was so the liver could detox and stuff. Do you know that one sentence put me to bed last night? I was like, no, I can't stay up till 1 a.m. anymore because I'm missing out on these new nerve cells that are growing. So get to bed at night. Don't stay up. Don't burn the midnight oil. It's going to help with time management during the daytime because sleep, they say all the time, can you imagine if they would just explain stuff properly? They say all the time, oh, sleep is so important and you need your rest and you need your this. How about just tell us why so that we can hop in bed, right? So that it doesn't feel for me like a doer. So it's not just like, oh, I'm sleeping, I'm kind of wasting time. Like, tell me that I'm going to miss out on new nerve cells if I don't get under the covers. So I loved that part. So essentially, it brings birth to these new baby nerve cells, and that's called neurogenesis, which brings to mind, we hear the Lord's mercies are new every single morning. Do you see how this is all intertwining? I love this. I'm fascinated. So this book is divided into 2 parts, she says. The first part, we're going to uncover the keys, okay, to doing this, switching on your brain. Second part is going to show how all these keys work together. So a little bit of learning in part 1. Part 2, we're going to bring this whole thing together, bring it full circle. You guys can go through the summary. I did highlight a few at the end, but I'm going to just watch the time. I'm going to let you do that. You can see in my book, I just stuck a circle around the ones that were those profound statements, right? You're not going to underline every single thing in the book, but choose the ones that it's at the end of every chapter. Choose the ones that stand out to you and are going to impact you. So there's a couple pages of that. Basically, we don't have to be stuck in our bad habits. You can change them. We do not have to just fall prey to, oh, this happened to me in life, right? You have control. You're not a victim. So hop over, if you have the book, to, we're going to start part 1, which is actually chapter 1, and it starts on page 31, 131. And it's called Mind Controls Matter. Anyone want to say anything profound that stood out to them in the last couple minutes before we jump ahead? Or an amen to that? I am not going to let you be quiet this study. Not allowed. You guys are amazing that you are here on your Saturday morning. I totally love it. Okay, I have to hear from at least one person. Come on, ladies.
Okay, just speaking to brain damage. I met a mom actually at convention whose child had drowned. And her son is going through some major therapy now. He is, I think he's about 3 or 4. No, I think he's only just 3. He was 2 when it happened. So but she is seeing some incredible results just through the therapy that he's doing with his brain, because they're seeing constantly new things every day. So it is true, like the brain can definitely heal. It's pretty exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I love meeting new people, right?
Yeah.
Their stories. Wow, Julie, that's amazing. I think once you grasp the idea, once you get off that kind of old age thinking of, oh, it is how it is. Oh, it's brain this or brain that, or I'm stuck, right? It's in the family. We're going to get to that. Oh, it's just in my family. It's this and that. No, it's not. I've been, a friend and I have gotten together a few times last couple of weeks, and we're just of such the same mindset of this whole, like, make life what you want it to be. You do not have to sit back and be idle. And that's the difference. That's that 2 to 3% of people that just succeed and they get out of life what they want. The number's way too high of people that just kind of sit back and say, woe is me. This is my life. Yeah. Right? No, it's not. Rock and Wellness is not a culture of mediocrity and this is just my life, right? You guys are here because you want change. You want something better. You woke up this morning knowing that there's more. So yay, amen to that. I hope you share this with everybody. Did somebody, sorry, I just saw the chat pop up. Okay, you guys are just chatting with yourselves. Awesome. Okay, chapter number 1. I don't know if we're going to get all the way to number 2. We're going to try. So mind controls matter. Okay, the debate in science right now, and it has always been, is that the mind, between the mind being what the brain does versus the brain doing what the mind does. Does this sound familiar to you guys, the gut health industry? Right? It's always been the brain controls, and what have we all found out? No, the gut sends more messages to the brain in a day than the brain sends down to the gut, right? So this is real. They're really learning a lot about this in all different areas of human behavior science. If you listen to Vanessa Van Edwards at all, you're really going to learn a bit about that. So she says the mind is what the brain does. The thoughts, so we're going to kind of get into some of these arguments here. So I'm going to just go through what I've highlighted and hit on some key points. The first argument proposes that thoughts come from your brain as though your brain is generating all these aspects, that it's in control, that you're just going through the motions, that the way you're feeling, the way you're acting, the way you're responding is because your brain told you so. Right? That's that scientific argument. It's been around for ages. They believe that it's chemicals and neurons that create the mind and the relationship between your thoughts. And what you can do can just be ignored. Do you guys believe that? No. Here is a glorious example. If you have ever struggled with depression or you know someone that has, with me going through anxiety and depression, I've heard this so often. I myself was told this in the doctor's office. I had a choice to make. I either had to just take their word and say, okay, or I had to fight for my health, and I chose to fight. Here's what they're telling. Think of all your friends going to the doctor. Here's what they're being told. For the treatment to depression, she says, in this reductionist view, depression is a chemical imbalance. It's a chemical imbalance problem of a machine-like brain. Therefore, the treatment of it is to add to those missing chemicals. Who's heard that before? Yeah. Is it a chemical imbalance? Yes, right? Hormones go off, cortisol goes off, we don't produce enough serotonin. Yes, 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 and yes. But do you see where they're getting at? This is just so like way over the top too. Science takes out all feeling, emotion, and responsibility. That's actually where our culture is going. Look at the schools. Look at the schools. The no left behind, I love that. No child should ever be put down for maybe not being at the same learning ability. But it's okay. It's okay if no one even gets expelled or suspended anymore. It's okay, right? That's just a reaction because it's just who you are. You have no control. It's no control, no accountability for anything anymore. Medical, behavioral, all our society is kind of going downhill a little bit. Let's stand up and show some truth. She says the brain does the bidding of the mind. She says you're a thinking being. You think all day long. At night as you sleep, you sort out your thinking. As you think, you choose. As you choose, you cause genetic expression to happen in your brain. Thoughts are real, physical things that occupy mental real estate. Did you know that you even think while you're sleeping? You sort out your thoughts during the day? Scary. I was like, oh, dang. I better really be careful what I'm thinking about at night because I could be causing unknown stress, during the day. So I could be causing unknown stress at night while I'm sleeping. Increasing cortisol unintentionally, subconsciously. No, thank you. Our brain is changing moment by moment as we are thinking. I didn't know that, guys. I knew that our brain changes. I knew about the neuroplasticity. I didn't know, though, that it's moment by moment. By our thinking and choosing, we're redesigning the landscape of our brain. Our mind is designed to control the body, of which the brain is a part of it, not the other way around. Right? We've always seen, going through school and everywhere else, that the brain is kind of the center that controls everything. Does it send out signals? Yes, but those signals are sent out first based on us. We were not created with a spirit of fear. Here's my favorite example. I came up with it all by myself. I was kind of proud. As I was drinking coffee this morning going over this. I said to my husband, think about this, babe, for a second. If we weren't in control of our thoughts and how that changed our choices and the direction of our life, I said, have you ever seen a baby that was born grumpy? Anybody? It sounds like so straightforward that it sounds ridiculous, right? Have you ever seen a baby that is born grumpy? Okay, they cry when they come out. They're freezing cold. But when they start to come alert, right? They're with mommy or daddy. They're surrounded by love and family. What is one of the first things you write on your calendar or you post that my baby did or you're telling people? They're smiling, they're cooing, they're looking around. You never hear a mom saying, oh, my baby is really started being grumpy or is scowling. You don't hear that. We are born with optimism. We're born with a natural desire to be loving and positive, optimistic, and then our influences start taking over. Does that make sense? I thought that, I don't know about you guys, but I was blown off my recliner this morning because I'm that is impactful. You just have to look at the many inspirational stories, right? That the survival stories of those who have overcome impossible odds. It shows you that mindset is everything, right? Throughout history, in current day, it again goes back to two people in the same situation. What do they choose? But I love the baby example. Ruth just hopped on. Ruth has a brand new little baby. Ruth's little baby did not come out with a predisposed crankiness and being grumpy and a negative outlook on life. No, she said nothing to determine it. We're created with love and optimism. She came out ready to enjoy the world and change it and smile and be happy until something starts to change that. Research shows, our choices are real. Write this down if it helps you. 75 to 98% of mental, physical, behavioral illness comes from your thought life. Whoa. You guys want to think of a good social media post, create some curiosity and some interaction, right? That would be a good line to post. Just don't all do it on the same day, right? Those are good things to bring to the table, to bring to awareness of people. This staggering and eye-opening statistic means that only 2 to 25% of mental and physical illness come from the environment and from genes. Again, that goes along with our gut health. Right? 80% of illness and disease begins in the gut. That only leaves that small percentage that's genetical, environmental, right? Thinking activates genes. Our consciousness activates our genes and changes our brain. Science shows us that thoughts with their embedded feelings turn sets of genes on and off. So you can turn them off with the wrong thinking, but here's the hope, you can turn them back on. So you're not stuck in a forever. If you've head down the wrong trail, who hasn't? You can turn those things back on, right? Go into the weekend knowing I have the power to change that. It's okay. I've had some crummy days. Who hasn't? But wake up. As long as you wake up and want to change and know that you can change, you are winning. You are winning. You are winning. We have a fixed set of genes in our chromosomes, but which of those genes are active and how they act is a great deal related to how we think and process our experiences. Our thoughts produce words and behaviors. I really like this. So our thoughts produce the words and behaviors that come out, right? That's true. Which in turn stimulate more thinking and more choices. And those choices build more thoughts. And you get stuck in this endless cycle for good or for bad. Does that make sense? Everybody that kind of okay, yeah, basic science. Our brains are shaped by our reactions. Science and scripture both show that we are wired for love and optimism. And here I kind of got ahead of myself in this baby example, but this is where I had this written down. And so we are wired for positivity, for optimism, for love. It's how we're created to be. But something goes a little bit haywire, right? And we need to take accountability for that. Thinking changes DNA on page 35. Research shows that DNA actually changes shape by your thoughts. as you think those negative thoughts about the future. Okay, we talk a lot about fear in our business, right? Not stepping outside of that fear box. It feels really comfy and comfortable to stay what we know. But when we think about those negative thoughts or fear about the week ahead, maybe what a person might think of us, what they might react, what they might say, what they might do, this toxic thinking is going to change your brain wiring into a negative direction. It's going to throw your mind and your body into stress. Guess what happens the next time that you want to maybe step outside your comfort zone? Your brain's going to say, that didn't go so good last time. It's going to be much harder, right, to get into that. Dr. Benson from Harvard, I like this, said negative thinking leads to stress, which affects our body's natural healing capacities. That is so well said. It's so true. When you increase that cortisol, do you guys ever notice when you go different times of the year, you can get the exact same cut? I'm going to say a kitty scratch. We've got tons of kitties running around on my farm right now. You get a kitty scratch, depending on what stress in life is like that week, that little kitty scratch might hardly be noticeable the next morning. Let's just say in May. Now some stress, you let some things get out of hand in your mind, right? We kind of maybe whatever. We don't sleep good. We're not taking care of ourselves. In August, another kitty scratches your hand. Now that time, the scratch might stay red, and it might take it a week to even just kind of like go away. Same kitty, same scratch, same body, but it's how your body heals and how quickly it heals. So think of physical illness and disease. I saw that huge with adrenal fatigue. I know when my adrenals are tired again, simply by how quick even a bruise goes away, a scratch, anything. I actually really watch that to know if I need extra vitamins or if I need extra sleep. So pay attention to that. And in your kids, if your kids get bumps and cuts and scrapes and stuff, if they're taking a really long time to heal, we got to get those physical bodies supported. There's too much stress and they might not even be showing it. Toxic thinking wears down the brain. Studies show that thinking and feeling anger, fear, frustration actually causes that DNA to change shape according to thoughts and feelings. That DNA actually shrivels up, it tightens up, and it just shrinks. Think of a dehydrated body. Same thing, the organs, the brain, everything just kind of shrivels up. A plant does that too. Your thinking can do that as well to your DNA. So we want those DNAs to be plump, right? Plump and hydrated and active, happy. If they had little faces on them, if they were cartoons, they would be happy. So it just says we feel shut down by negative emotions. Our body feels this too. But here's the really great part. The negative shutdown or poor quality of DNA can be reversed. It showed that scientifically in research that could all be reversed by feelings of love and joy, acceptedness, belonging. We talk about belonging with our kids. We talk about connection and belonging with our teams, right? It's so much more. When we talk about connection and belonging, we are not talking about our points in our back office. We are legitimately talking about people feeling like they have a place to belong. It actually changes their DNA. Can you imagine if you could help somebody feel that joy, have their DNA unshrivel and come back to life just because you were a place for them, a happy place? And that's where people stay. I think Ruth could nod and agree with me. She is such a light in my life. You guys, what an amazing person to be one of your leaders in Rock and Wellness. Ruth has such a positive impact in life and such a wholehearted Ruth. You are so much about belonging and connection and such a soft place to land. Ruth is such a good example of that. So look to her when you're kind of looking at, right, how can I make my team feel? How can I talk to them? How can I make them feel more that this isn't just about our virtual offices. This isn't about ranks. This is about coming together as a people and to actually be changing the trajectory of our lives. So she does some more about the studies there. Page 36, she gets into stress, right? So we kind of hit on that. You can read that paragraph. Stress has 3 stages. Stage 1 is stresses would be normal. Everybody has everyday stress. Stage 2 and 3, we start getting into the abnormal. It starts affecting our physical and our emotional health, and that cortisol goes high. We all know here that tosses off your insulin, which disrupts the hormones, right? And it's a cycle. Reaction at the top of page 37 is the key to all of this. So the key word here, reaction, you cannot control events or life circumstances, but you can control your reactions. Who's going to leave here today at least trying to have better self-control? Yes, yes. That's step number one. Step number one, it's not perfection. It's not even that you're going to do it perfectly today. It'd be terrible of me to tell you, you know what, you're going to go, Joelle, Luann, Jessica, whoever's all on here, you're going to go today and you've decided and it is just going to be perfect. It's not. And an hour from now, you might also be like, oh, shoot, I already messed up. But guess what? Stand back up. Stand back up. You guys can do this. You have control. Stress is a factor in 75% of all illness and disease. The American Medical Association shows that the association between stress and disease is a colossal 85%. Huge. And they say the Cancer International Agency for Research in Cancer, get this, 80% of cancers are due to lifestyle, not genetics. That's huge. And they said that's a conservative number. So again, going to gut health, we kind of know those numbers. It says less than 2% of the population has issues like cystic fibrosis, really intense medical issues, but that's less than 2%. So are there genetical chromosomal issues? Absolutely, definitely. We had a friend, their son, he passed away at like 2 years old from brain cancer. At 2 years old, yes, you're starting to form some of your behaviors and stuff and some of your mindset, but at 2 years old, that little boy was already born with cancer. They're pretty sure he already had that tumor growing. Right? He didn't, it's nothing at that age, so that makes up that small percentage. A little baby born with a blood cancer, they're born with love and optimism. So that's that small percentage where you can't say, oh, they had terrible negative thinking. No, take those numbers into perspective, right? Be really careful with your words when you're talking to people. Really neat numbers. Only 5% of cancer and cardiovascular patients can attribute their disease to hereditary factors. Who has people in their life where they're like, no, gut health has nothing to do with that? Someone better raise their hand. Thank you, Bev. Okay, I had people very close to me who have gone through cancer, who have flat out said, my gut health, my eating, sugar, all of that has nothing to do with why I got cancer. Really? Okay. Sad. There's research, okay? You have to want to. You have to be willing. Okay, 75 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related problems. That's not new news to us. So the main point of this chapter 1 was just that mind controls matter. Right? Those numbers are pretty high. The stats are pretty staggering. The summary, there's 4 quick things I'm going to point out. We're going to be done with chapter 1. Point number 3 there on page 38 says our brain does not control us. We control our brain through our thinking and through our actions. I just gave you guys a whole new lease on life. Or whoever you know that is a negative Nelly. Okay, that is a whole new lease on life if you can understand that one concept. Number 4, we control our reactions to anything. Is it hard? Most times, yes. I'm a mama 4 and I homeschool. It ain't always pretty. Matter of fact, right now we're teaching 2 of our girls about self-control, right? Not all your kids are going to get along the same way as the other ones. So we're really just shepherding them, right? Rewarding them. You know what? That was really hard, but you had really good self-control, right? I saw you kind of, your face, I told one of them today, I have noticed this week, you're trying to make those decisions and you can see it. Their face is almost like a transformer because you can see them. They just want to like let those comments out, but they hold it back in, and that was so hard for them. So Kurt's taking 2 of them out for supper tonight as a way to reward and say, it wasn't perfect this week, but we see you trying. And that's how we are as adults. If you see someone in your family, if you see your best friend, if you see someone in your team, and you at least you saw them trying, verbally praise them. They're going to respect you. They're going to want to come to you. They're going to want to be around you. Verbally praise them, giving them that sense of, I can do this, right? I can do this. People will work harder for praise than a raise. Let's just leave chapter 1 with that. Reaction, keyword of the whole chapter. We have about 10 minutes. Would you like me, would like me to continue for about 10 minutes on chapter 2, or would you like to wait? I'm gonna get a couple people to respond, or just raise your hand if you want to keep going. It's an I don't know and an I don't know. Ruth, you want to keep going, or do you want to pause on chapter 2?
I would say take your time to cover chapter 2 next week.
Okay.
Right? You probably spend a whole hour on chapter 2, right?
Yeah. Sounds good. You guys want to pause and think about this today? Yeah, let's do that. Let's pause and think about it, because we kind of switch gears on the victim mentality. So kind of goes the same, which is why I lumped them together. But that's right. Let's not hurry through it. Instead, let's take this week and just kind of chew on and write down a couple thoughts on how you can just be more aware of your thoughts and how it's affecting you. And maybe take some time, some quiet time, and think about, right, what has life looked like, right? Maybe there's some things that I can change. Maybe it's affected my business. Maybe it's affected my family life, my marriage, my relationship with the kids, right? Okay, thoughts, questions. Not too many questions. The facts are all in here, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Some things that stood out. You will have to unmute yourself, though.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I've been enjoying every word of this book. I'm not in chapter 2 yet, so I'm happy to stop here and talk. It reminds me a lot of the team we got to a ministry called Be in Health in Georgia. And I was delivered from so many sicknesses, physical sicknesses that were a result of my generational that I had recognized before. But that was 3-4 years ago, so I really needed this refresher. And what you just said about encouraging and how that can actually change the DNA in our brain, I totally agree with that. I have almost 6 children under age 8, and we're not always pretty here either. But I'm so inspired about being more of an encourager and not just don't do this, don't do that, do this and do that, but actually speak life into their lives and their brains and watch those faces light up. It's so easy when they're that age. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing. It has blessed me immensely.
Thank you for sharing that. You're so right. That encouragement has such power as moms, and most of us here are moms, maybe we all are. It's huge, and it's really easy to get stuck in your day-to-day. We're tired. We have a lot going on. I myself fall over backwards often in forgetting to encourage, because it's much more natural to be like, why aren't the dishes done yet? Or you missed a spot on the table, or, whatever. And just trying to get more yeses and more encourages out than more no's, or when you still have to correct, right? You can't ignore that all because we're shepherding. But to be able to kind of be like, okay, they didn't do their chore properly. First say, hey, you did that really, really well. That was a good start. That's what I try to do. That looks really great. That's a great start. Let's just finish it up by. And it feels a little less like you're coming down on them. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Luann. Anyone else want to share or have something? Okay, we're going to wrap it up then for today. And we are going to meet back here next week we're gonna aim for chapter 2. Read to the end of chapter 3 in case we can. Chapter 2 isn't that long, so in case we have some time, so that you at least are on. It's not a ton of reading. That's what's nice about this, and it is summer, so kick up your feet. Just a couple minutes. I'm giving myself at least 15-20 minutes a day. Just that is part of your personal growth, personally and in business. Right? You get to use that. And so, kind of make that a part of it. And we will see each other back here next week.